Welcome everyone. I'm going to share with you what I learned today prepping and running the third protocol. My goal is to make your prep a little easier and hopefully to share a nugget or two that elevates Adventure League for all of us. So let's get started. This is an Eberron Oracle of War adventure. It's a level 4 adventure, the fourth one in the series. And before I go any further, there will be spoilers abounding, so please don't watch this until you've played it. The page references that I'll make here are to the printer-friendly version in case there's a difference between the versions. The author of this adventure is M.T. Black. He is a co-writer on Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus, a co-writer on Elminster's Candlekeep Companion, which I'm intending to buy. It's available on DriveThruRPG. And the maps that I'm using, some of them came with old Eberron books, the world maps here that I have. And then the map of Salvation itself is from STM Roleplay. They have maps for each of the Oracle of War adventures. Here's the STM Roleplay one. It's on sale. And plus, it's part of a bundle. So if you're going to run all the maps, you can get a bundle of all of them. And they have them all listed here, including the Iron Titan and Century of Ashes coming up. They come with maps that are one big giant map, maps with and without grid, two separate maps, and that's what I did. Or maybe I might have taken the big giant map and cut it in half and made two files of it. But in order to make Roll20 run a little smoother, I have a map in the upper part here and a map in the lower part, and of course they just seamlessly go together, so no worries there. When I was setting up the map here, I just put some random villagers and various residences in the map in case the players go into any of these. And right now I have it shown where it's kind of the DM view. The players I have blocked from seeing what's inside most of the buildings. If I do that, you'll see how they're black to the players. So I go back to the DM view here. Okay. There is descriptions of what these buildings are in the map up here. But one thing I'm going to do before I run it the next time is add text out in front of the various buildings so the players know, what building is what. Like, for example, might go to the map layer, go to text, and I'll usually make this in like red or purple or something, and pretty big font, 40, and I'll just say here the Playhouse. I think that's the name of the not the tavern, but the playhouse in town, which it is. Now put that right there, and I might do that on a few of the other ones. And I'll check and see what the signs say, and I might just describe if they have signs, what the signs say themselves. So I'd recommend doing that. And then finally, the train platform. I didn't really describe how elevated it is, and you can see it's got a flight of stairs to go up to it, or they're pretty long, so it might be up to about 10 feet tall, so I would explain that better than my players the first time I described it. And I'd also say if the bad guys back up from the edge, they'll be blocked from view, and that kind of lets the encounters at the end play out a little bit better, which we'll see here in a minute. For music for this adventure, I found this Lonesome West by Tabletop Audio. So I'll play that in the background. Hopefully it won't be too loud, but it's pretty cool. I'll turn it up louder to start. So that's got a good mood to it. And then for inspiration, there's a movie called Once Upon a Time in the West, and the opening scene of that's got some pretty cool inspiration for the battle that happens at the train depot. And thanks to one of my players, Josh, for pointing that out. And thanks to Josh, I'm watching all of that movie now. Knowledge skills and character backgrounds. There is a lot of room to share information with the players before this adventure starts. Because in theory, the players or the characters should have been in Salvation for some time now and know a lot. Now, one thing I share is the Salvation times. And then in addition, I go through the adventure and I look for where character backgrounds and proficiencies and knowledge could play in. And there's a bunch of them in this one. You can definitely add your own to suit your players, but here's some that I have. So for Arcana, the Moorland info on page 6 I share. Also, some with Arcana, I share that the Provisioner, Eric's Thorn, has a magic circlet, which they for sure would have seen coming and going to the Provisioner shop. and that they may be able to convince him to part with it. That's kind of important because otherwise there's a very good chance the party never sees the provisioner, never gets a chance to get that magic item. So I would definitely share that information with the players ahead of time if at all possible, and if not, maybe cheat a little bit on the roll for the cries for help table, which we'll get to in a minute. If there's any dwarves in the party or anyone with brewer's supplies proficiencies in the party, I share that the Frostmantle Fire is a potent alcoholic drink from the Moorholds, and some dwarves know how to extract a healing brew from the drink, and then hopefully the players will think to look for the tavern in town and find that. For religion, I share that the Silver Flame helps those who honestly pray for strength in times of need. That also kind of is hinted at in the Salvation Times. That is shared. I'll show that on the screen while I go through these. For land vehicles, I share that the rail shed contains a barrel of oil which can make for a large explosion. That's also hinted at in the Salvation Times here, this keg of fire oil. And then when they get to that, like I might share with someone with Arcana skill or alchemical skills how big the explosion might be before it goes off so they know. Someone who has navigation, a neutral artificer, a changeling, a shifter, nefarious sort of some kind, I might share that there's a secret shrine of the Traveler in the southwest corner of Salvation. That's also in the Times. It's also on this map that I share that I probably shouldn't have shared. 15 years Traveler's Shrine. I think there's another version of this map that does not identify that lists it as a residence, so I might change that before I run this adventure again. Anyone who's a smith, I share that the blacksmith often has a good selection of weapons and sometimes alchemist fire. That's also hinted at in the Times by the fire threat here. Anyone with nature skill, medicine skill, herbalism skill, I share about the apothecary, having all manner of healing and other concoctions that may be useful to defend Salvation. Anyone who's a bard or who has a performance skill, I share that there's a secret tunnel under the stage of the playhouse, which leads to a nearby residence. That's also hinted at in the Times. And lastly, anyone who is a noble or a thief or a brigand or something like that, I share that some of Breland's wealthier folk are holidaying at the Salvation Hotel, which is also mentioned in the Times here. So I like sharing this background information so the players can share it in character during the game and kind of feel accomplished if they use this information to do a better job in the adventure. All right, so the encounters. The encounters start out with the return to Salvation description, and then the party finds themselves at the salvage market pretty quick. I tailored that a little bit to match when I ran the series because I had the Oracle malfunction at a different time because I inserted the Iron Titan adventure in right before this adventure. So I kept the Oracle working all the way through the Iron Titan adventure, and then I had it at the end of the Iron Titan malfunction, and so I changed that description a little bit. The party's here in the salvage market. The gray dogs for me were already gone. They had already perished. Only Callie was left. But if you still have the gray dogs, you'll want to have them all. Tokens for them all, which hopefully you have from the third adventure and the second adventure in the series. Then I had the group of mercenaries. These are the Ashen Hounds that come to attack the party. My party had already defeated, or not defeated, but Aurelion was not here when my party ran this, and the next one I run, she won't be here either. But have her ready in case she is here. Then enter the assassins. So the assassins, definitely find some cool tokens for these guys if you can. I'm trying to remember where all these guys came from that I used. This was an orc, I think, out of Volo's Guide, or it might have been Mordenkainen's Guide. I don't have a picture for him. Just the standard ogre for the ogre. For Saul, Dreadstroke, a cool looking half orc. For the Iron Cobra, and the Iron Cobra picture from the D&D Beyond, and a Helmed Horror. He was pretty cool. And then lastly, the Gnoll. And the Gnoll, I think, came from maybe Mordenkainen's, but definitely from D&D Beyond. You can get most of these pictures. I think this one I picked up on Pinterest. So there's the squad. I have them on the GM layer, so I can just put them on the player layer when they make their appearance. And then you want them to disperse into the village, because this adventure, when I ran it the first time, I got a couple things a little bit wrong. And so when these guys go out and disperse and they're looking for villagers to collect and or assassinate, the party needs to disperse at the same time. So use all the hooks you can get to the players not to make a frontal assault. The frontal assault should be way too deadly for them. And the thing I did wrong is I said Saul's calling out to kill one, or killing one every 10 minutes, but it doesn't necessarily say Saul's killing one. It's saying what's it say? Saul calls for his comrades to execute one. So he should be calling out into salvation to the assassins that are dispersed, saying kill one, and they reply, yes, boss, as the party here screams and might run to that area, and that'll help the party fight these guys one at a time. And also, if someone's getting killed every 10 minutes and it's all happening at the train station, the party will just rush right to the train station, which you don't want to have happen. All right. Another hook to get the party away from rushing the train station is the cries for help. So these are on page 12. I rolled mine ahead of time. I'd definitely suggest you do that if you can. I had one of the salvagers hisses that there is a barrel of explosive oil in the rail shed. And that was Drave. I had a player bring this token to the game, and it fit Drave pretty well. I mean, it's not kind of Old West style, but so I used that as a pretty cool token for Drave. The town's carpenter, Grayson Arrow, which I have is this guy right here, says he has a net in his workshop that is large enough to catch even that big fella. And then the dwarf owner of the bakery, which I have right over here, and his unruly children, which I grabbed from a picture of gully dwarves from Dragonlance. He begs the group to lure the raiders away as he rushes into his home. So that did a good job of helping my party, just go after the stuff they knew that could help them and go try and track down these bad guys one at a time. So definitely do that. When the end comes, after they've been fighting the bad guys, then they need to, rush the train station. Saul will be there. You'll need the flying daggers for Saul. So I found these pictures on Pinterest of a dagger. Flying daggers all around Saul. Saul's kind of any opponent really is a pretty easy opponent for a party one-on-one. And so in a lot of instances, I kind of ended up with 2 assassins, and I held one back with Saul. It was the Iron Cobra. So I had these 2 get it in one fight together, and these 2 get in one fight together, and then the Iron Cobra. And even with that, I upped all their hit points by 250%, so basically maximum hit points for all of them. And it was a pretty good fight for the party, even maybe slightly easy for the party. They were all 4th level. There were 6 of them. Some of them are, really good tactically. So you have to judge your party. If you got a group of 3rd levels and maybe they're a pickup group, so they haven't played together, then as written should be okay. But if the more and more they've played together, the more and more party composition's good. I would raise the hit points a little bit and have them fight more than one at a time. But yeah, so that was the adventure. The final battle went pretty quick. It was a pretty quick adventure. They didn't do a whole lot of talking to people because I kind of, made it too urgent for them. They were under the impression that a person was dying every 10 minutes, so they didn't have any feeling they wanted to go and talk. But if the people were dying scattered around Salvation, that would definitely keep your party out there in Salvation, talking to people, rescuing people, tracking down the bad guys, killing the bad guys, and then finally, when that's run its course, you can have Saul call out in part 4 to them, bring the Oracle. I'm killing a person every minute, and then the final battle can take place. So the adventure record for this one, like all adventure records in Oracle War, is really cool. I'd love to see regular Adventure League do this sort of thing. The way the rewards are structured, it gives the players a choice. Generally, you're going to take permanent magic items until you're up to your cap, which is after this adventure, the cap would go from 1 to 3. So everyone in the party would take a circulated blasting. But this gives them a real choice. I mean, are you going to take a circulated blasting that I might throw away later, or a vial, or a potion of healing and oil of slipperiness that I might have use for? So it's got some choices here, or more gold if I'm saving gold for stuff. Alright, so they can advance or not advance. 100 gold pieces from Saul. The Oracle Detector. I never described that during the adventure. I'm going to see if I can do a better job describing it in the adventure. Have Saul talking into it, have it pointing towards the Oracle of War, something like that. The bonus rewards, and this will kind of depend on what areas the players go to. That's why it's good to give them as much of this information ahead of time as possible, so they don't feel cheated out of any items, especially this circlet of blasting. Captured assassins. So I did not drop any hints that the players might want to just knock an assassin out. Just want to leave that completely up to them, and none of them did. They killed every assassin. But if they don't, there's some extra gold here for them, so that's pretty cool. And, if they dig into their characters, they probably want to know why is someone coming after to kill them. And then still alive, my party had Callie be destroyed by this horrendous monster of an assassin. This orc. This orc's could rip some party members apart with his, he's got aggressive to get up to the party. Then he's got this flurry where he makes 6 attacks. And if he finds someone who he's gone before the initiative order, every attack's with advantage, every attack's doing extra damage. He's going to just rip someone to shreds. So, I don't know what to say except I used a sacrificial victim. It just worked out that way. That Callie was in the way. And it gives some, coverage there for Callie, or some ending for Callie, but I don't know. I'm torn on how I would do this if it was a player character. I mean, just let it rip and they die, and hopefully they don't face this guy at the start of the adventure. But if they do die, they can take the player character back to the temple. He can be raised. I need a better token for the priestess. That's obviously not a good priestess token. He can be raised from the dead. He won't get the treasure for the adventure, but it'll, put some fear of God into the players about how horrendously evil these assassins are. So that might be a good thing. So we'll see if Callie gets in between the party and this guy next time I run it or not. Then, back to the adventure record. All right, and then still alive. So Callie did not survive the adventure the first time I ran it. She probably will the next time, and either she'll stay behind in Salvation or head on to Sharn at the party's behest. We'll see what the party decides. That is it. That's Oracle of War. That's the preparations I did. Some of the things I learned from running it. After I ran it, I found this cool tip from Justice Arman on Twitter. And his tip was, at the end of your session, ask your players how they imagined one part of the session in their heads. Not only is this interesting to see what stood out to your players, it can help you refine your description skills. So I did this, and that's where I got the insight about the Once Upon a Time movie. The player said, I imagine that fight was like that movie. So that's cool. And I'm going to keep doing this in the future. That's some good advice there, Justice. And that is it. So I hope you have a great time when you run this adventure. If you have any tips for this adventure or your fellow adventure leaguers, please share them in the comments. Please subscribe if this comment is useful to you. And thank you so much for watching.